Good morning and welcome to Legacy Planning with local attorney Steve Waltar. Legacy Planning is committed to helping you provide personalized and compassionate estate planning to help you organize and transfer your estate smoothly with minimal taxes, costs, and hassles. Steve has the mind of an attorney and the heart of a pastor, and he'd love to take your call this morning to answer your estate planning questions. The lines are open at 1-800-955-8200. That's 800-955-8200. Now, here's your host of Legacy Planning, Steve Waltar.
Good morning, Seattle. Good morning, listeners out there. We're live and local. It's a great day today. My gosh, had to put the blinders down. A little sunshine coming in the eyes. That's nice after weeks of not so clear. This week in planning, a lot of things. I had, families. One of the neat things that happened to me this week was a mom or a surviving spouse came in. Actually, KGNW listener heard my ad when I did a seminar sweep and came to a seminar. In fact, I have a new set of seminars coming up a couple of weeks from now, so I'll need to start plugging that because that's a great way to talk about poor planning and good planning. You get to meet me, interact. My books are always half price and that sort of thing. At any rate, she had been to a seminar. She thought I told great stories, but she wanted to come in with her children. So I got a meeting with a surviving spouse along with the adult children. And, it's been almost 6 months since she lost her spouse, but she was still grieving. I get that. And turns out they planned wisely. So when husband died, so often someone comes in to do their planning, and I find that husband's name is still on title, and that's a pain. We're a community property state, and people think, automatically things go to the spouse. That's not the case. If you're out there and you're married and you think automatically everything goes to your spouse, I got news for you. If you have real property, it's just not like a bank account. So thankfully, in this case, they had actually signed a community property agreement. So the good news was everything in Washington State was titled in the wife's name. And she really, really wanted to create a legacy. She cares for her children. She cares about education and scholarships and things like that. So she wanted to develop a plan that not only would work for the children, but even for the next generation. And it was fun to talk about that. And yeah, there may be some out-of-state issues to kind of clean up. But so if you're out there and you are married and you think everything in Washington automatically goes to the surviving spouse, that's not true. Can I say that again? It's not true. The reality is you have lots of options in Washington. But just because we're a community property state doesn't mean everything goes automatically to the survivor. So it was nice to meet with her and with her children, adult children. They were there. They cared for her. They wanted what was best, and we designed a plan that fits her situation. I have some people losing sleep over, are they going to lose their home? What if they run out of money? We're living longer, but not always better. And so, I had people that wanted to talk about safe harbor trusts. I absolutely do that. It's not just other radio voices and names. We do safe harbor trusts. If you want to provide for a spouse, but make sure the state won't put a lien on your property, we do that. So it takes advanced planning. Sometimes we do irrevocable trusts now, start that 5-year clock running. Sometimes we do planning when one dies, but the reality is you have to plan before a spouse dies or you lose your options. I had some other people that wanted to plan for their minor children. I had some other people, living with someone, not married. What do they do? How do you do asset protection? I mean, this is just my life, the life of an estate planner. Now, one of the things that people start losing sleep over is taxes. When I give seminars, I like to quote Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin said, "Nothing in life is certain but death and taxes." Yeah, I think that's kind of true. But Will Rogers went on, he kind of added to that. He said, yeah, but at least death doesn't get worse every time Congress meets. Whereas I think sometimes taxes do every time Congress meets, and in a political year like this, I mean, back and forth, taxes, this, that, and the other. So today I have a guest. He runs an accounting office. His name is Eddie Harris. Eddie is a neat guy, fun guy. He's an enrolled agent, and I want to let him tell you what that means. So first, let me give our number, because if you want to call today to talk about any estate planning issue or you want to talk about taxes, you got a great opportunity. So give us a call at 425. No, I got the wrong number there. It's 1-800. You can dial 1-800-955-8200. That is 1-800-955-8200. Eddie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. It's good to be here today. Welcome to a great morning here in Seattle. I'm here to talk a little bit about taxes with you guys. Name's Edward Harris. I'm an enrolled agent. It means I'm enrolled to practice before the Internal Revenue Service. I was going to open it up a little bit just to tell you what an enrolled agent is.
Yeah, that'd be great, because I know what that means, but our listeners may not know what an enrolled agent is.
Yeah, we have got many clients coming into our office saying, are you a CPA and how are you licensed? And so an enrolled agent is licensed by Treasury. It's a 3-part test that has to be passed. It's graded on a curve, so it's harder to pass for most people. But the nice part about it is it's really deep in taxes. We have to go through partnerships, estates, trusts, individuals, and all types of tax matters. And the nice part about being an enrolled agent is we're also a part of a nationwide forum of other enrolled agents. And you can go to the state's website, which is Washington State Society of Enrolled Agents. It's WSSEA.org. That's WSSEA.org. And you can log on to there and you can find an enrolled agent locally in your area and get more information about what it is we do and how we represent clients before the Internal Revenue Service.
Cool. That is really good. I've referred to accountants for years because I don't do tax returns. I don't even do estate returns anymore. And I've actually had a number of really quality experiences with enrolled agents. And I didn't know till we talked today about kind of the certification process. So on a curve means not everyone's going to pass that test.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the more people that are passing, the harder they make the questions and less people pass.
Yeah, and so I think you're saying accountants also have certified public accountants pass a test, but it could be on auditing, it could be on more than estate tax, it could be pretty broad.
It is, and the CPA test actually has got very little to do with tax on it. And so most people don't get that. They're a CPA, but if you go out and see most CPAs out in the field practicing, they don't deal very much with tax. Now, there's a lot of them that do deal with tax and have a lot of information, but many of them just don't.
Got it. And so the enrolled agent test is pretty deep in tax issues, and that's really the core of what you do.
Exactly.
Yeah. And your background, you actually worked for Eddie Bauer for a while?
I did. I was their head of their tax department for 10 years and learned a lot about multi-state taxation, was on a couple boards with the governor's office at that time, and it was a good experience.
Yeah. And so how long have you had Northwest Tax Specialists?
So Northwest Tax has been around since 1990. So
Okay.
It just hit 25 years last summer. And
Congratulations. Yeah.
it's a pretty good sized firm. We're in Bellevue. We handle customers all throughout Washington State, all throughout the country. We've got clients in New York and Florida, and we got Microsoft executives over in Europe that we take care of. So
Nice. 25 years. I come up on 25 years of marriage this year. So that's 25 years. And I've had my law firm since 2000. So, but I've been doing this kind of field for that long. One of the reasons that I really wanted to have you on as a guest is your philosophy towards planning. You want to tell me, or tell the listeners a little bit how you like to approach planning with your clients and tax work?
So we always try to put the customer first in what we've got going on. The planning of taxes is very important. I'm reminded of a client a few years ago that decided to expand their business and open an additional location and do some stuff. And every time they called their accountant, they got a bill at the end of the day. And so
people don't like that with attorneys. Like, they don't like those hourly billings. I like to do flat fees because I want to be on the same side of the table. Look, let me help you accomplish something. I don't want to bill you every single time we talk.
Exactly. Well, and these people, they put all their money into their expansion and all of a sudden found themselves with no cash and more trouble than they possibly could think about. And they couldn't call anybody for help. So they got referred on to us, and we sat down with them and figured out a game plan to pull themselves out of that. And I always want to remember that my practice is built on people, and I want to be there to help them. And so we don't charge for consultations of any type, whether you're a new client, or an existing client, we're there to help you.
Did you hear that, listeners? You don't charge for the initial consult?
We do not.
And actually, I tested that, right? I've sent some clients your way, and I believe had a client, a daughter of someone, and I guess her brother just passed away, and she got this IRS notice, right? That, they were going to lien something, and she was just desperate. And I know I don't work with the IRS, right? So I was able to give out your name, and I believe you were able to at least give her some counsel and some advice on that.
Yes. And we've gotten several people from you and your firm, and I really appreciate it. Again, it's not about looking for new clients. It's about helping people out there when they've got questions. And there's so much misinformation from the news channels and other radio stations, and people don't always know which way to move. And to have a professional in their corner helps.
So today you can certainly call us at 1-800-955-8200. That is 1-800-955-8200. And we can talk about taxes and planning and anything that has to do with estate planning. But during the week, if you want, you can call Northwest Tax Specialists, Edward Harris's firm. He's got a number of accountants that work there, and that is 425-709-6800. That's 425-709-6800. So let's get into some stories of kind of good and bad planning. I think people learn by that. And I often tell people when they move from state to state, by gosh, they better review those wills and trusts because there's different rules. And I sometimes get these cases where people have moved here. They think they have a great will or trust. It says, I want to pass the maximum tax-free amount, whatever the federal law allows, even as it's amended, da-da-da-da-da-da. And then they come in here to Washington. I'm looking at this plan, and I say, look, if one of you dies, there could be a $240,000 bill, a check due to the state of Washington within 9 months, and their jaw drops. Can you explain why that is?
Well, part of that is because of the fact that while the federal exemption limit today is $5.4 million, the Washington state is $2 million, and they want to start looking at any estate that's over $1 million. And so when you start looking at assets that somebody may have, that, there's a lot of property out there today in Seattle and East Side, and that could definitely start getting you into that place where you need to start looking at that stuff.
It's hard to own a home when you start adding up the IRAs and this, that, and the other, and it's pretty easy to ramp up and be over $2 million. Yeah, and a lot of times when I give free initial consults for people, but I like to send out a questionnaire because I, like you, I'm in the business of helping people, but I can't give good counsel unless I have some information about their assets. And by the time, actually, if any of you, today or during the week, you can call our office at 425-455-6788. So the law office of Stephen M. Waltar is 425-455-6788. We would be happy to send you out a free confidential estate planning questionnaire. And that's really the first step because you complete that and then you come in for a free consult. So a lot of times when people are adding things up, they had no clue what they were worth. And actually, if they even have life insurance, whether it's group term through their employment or they own something, that's added. So I added $1 million of insurance when I was going to climb Rainier because my wife was nervous. That meant my estate was that much bigger. So it's not that difficult to get up and over $2 million. One of the things that you can often say you can't live without attorneys, can't die without them. I think that's even more true of people in accounting, right? I mean, taxes affect everybody. Isn't that just about true?
It is. We all pay taxes. We all have to abide by the laws of it. And I believe that everybody should have a good insurance guy, a good attorney, and a good accountant in their corner to be able to help with the planning of items.
Yeah, and I, sometimes we joke about this. Whenever they change the law, I call that the Accountant Full Employment Act or the Attorney Act. As the laws get more complex, it's important to have good advisors. I have found there are some accountants that they are completely. There's a wide range of variety and approaches, and some people say, "Well, you owe," and they just pencil the numbers. And And then there's others that try to take a little bit of a planning approach, and they say, look, here's what you can do to change some of that in the future. How do you approach that sort of thing?
Well, that's why we offer free consultations to our clients, is we want all of our business customers to come in on an annual basis and talk about where their businesses are, whether they're doing good or doing bad, or, what taxes are going to look like. And all our individuals. And are you on a W-2, and are you taking the right things into consideration? Have you bought a house for deductions? What's going on, and how can we help you save on taxes but increase your net worth at the end of the day? Because that's really the key to it, is increasing your net worth and trying to pay the little as possible, but what the law allows.
That's great. So we've got an enrolled agent here with us today. If you have a tax question, if you're worried about estate taxes, income taxes, portability, give us a call at 1-800-955-8200, and we will answer your questions.
Legacy Planning. Legacy Planning with Steve Waltar. Has it been over 5 years since you've reviewed your estate plan? Well, the laws keep changing. You'll definitely want to keep listening. The lines are open at 800-955-8200. That's 800-955-8200. Legacy Planning. Live and local. This is Legacy Planning with Steve Waltar. Wondering if you really have complete, up-to-date estate plans? Call Steve right now at 800-955-8200. That's 800-955-8200.
We are back. We're back here live in Seattle, answering your questions about legacy estate planning. Legacy estate planning is making sure you've got good wills and trusts and powers of attorney, and you've got good advisors. You've got good help with tax matters and things like that. And today, my guest is Edward Harris. He's an enrolled agent. He's been doing tax returns since 1984. He worked with Eddie Bauer. He's had his own firm up here since 1990. And one of the things that I wanted to ask, because you can't help but see the news and the TV, is, come to H&R Block and we'll do it for free, or sometimes they're offering cash back. Tell us the truth. What's really going on with that, and what kind of representation does someone get if they go to H&R Block or something like that?
That's an interesting question, because there's H&R Block, there's Jackson Hewitt, there's a lot of small commercial firm or bigger commercial firms that are out there that you see in every strip mall along the side of the road.
Right.
And most of these companies, while they do an adequate job in preparing your taxes, most of the people that are working for them have just learned how to do taxes. I know H&R Block offers a class if you're interested in doing taxes. You can take that class in September in a year, and it's about a 6-week class. If you do well, they offer you a job afterwards. The problem for us individuals out there in the world is, do I want to go to somebody that's been preparing taxes for 2 months to get my tax return completed?
Right.
And if you just got a W-2 and maybe some kids and you're not sure about TurboTax and you want to try to get it done, that works. But if you've got a house and you've got donations and you've got childcare or maybe a nanny or any of that stuff, you really want a seasoned tax preparer that can help you navigate the things so that you can get the best deductions possible.
Yeah. So you don't want to be penny wise, pound foolish.
Exactly. And I haven't even looked at my email this morning because I get emails just constantly this time of year for people looking for preparers, and the biggest question is, well, how much do you charge? And can you save me more than TurboTax or anything else? In fact, I had a friend that's been a friend for a while. He went out there and did 3 of the major software programs, all 3 of them each year, to see which one was going to give him the best refund.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And
what did you discover?
Each one of them was different. That was the part I couldn't figure out. If you're putting the same data in every one, how do they come out different each time?
Right.
And he spent 2 or 3 days putting this information together, trying to calculate it. And he came in and saw me last year, and we did his taxes. And we took, a half an hour to do his taxes because they weren't very difficult. Yeah. And we got twice as much as what any of the software programs would do for him.
Wow, I like that. So anyone that owns a home, has children, there's a few issues out there. even if the software might give you some answers, it may not ask the right questions. And really, I mean, you don't know what you don't know. So that's the benefit you have working with someone. They kind of know they know the right questions. They can uncover things and not only do the returns right, but maybe can advise you in the future how to do things better.
Exactly. So all the people that work for me at Northwest Tax, and including myself, we stay up to date. We pile through, you talked earlier about the tax law changes that Congress does on an annual basis. Well, we take all that information, those thousands of pages of documents, and digest them and make it available to you. And not everything that's passed is going to affect every person. So we're able to dissect it and say, well, for your situation, this is what will work best for you, and be able to bring up ideas that you never would have thought of.
Okay. So I think that almost everyone that needs to do a tax return could benefit by coming in and seeing someone at your firm.
They could.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, Eddie, there are some clients have, when one spouse dies, there's this, there's a Washington State return if the amount that the decedent passes more than $2 million or something like that. Sometimes people think, hey, I don't have $5 million. I'm never going to have $5 million. Why should I do a bunch of forms after someone dies? And then there's this little thing in the estate planning realm we call portability. And I often try to explain that to people. But I think you had a story of when this really helped some of your clients.
Yeah, we had an elderly lady over in Leavenworth. It was a husband and wife. They were married for a long time. The husband decided to purchase some commercial land over in Leavenworth. And it'd been vacant for the longest time. And when the husband passed on, the wife didn't know what it had anything to do with it. So she got an appraisal on the property, and it was about $3 million at the time. And
not the appraisal or the property.
The property, yeah.
Not the cost of the appraisal.
Yeah, exactly. So the attorney and everybody involved in it's like, well, we don't need to do anything more. The estate's under the $5.4 million or 5.2, whatever it was at the time. We don't need to do anything more. Let's just move on.
Right. And
the client came to our office and said, let's file the estate tax return. It's a simple return that we can do to give the husband's $5.2 million over to the wife. So now she's got a $10 million estate that she's not going to pay any federal income taxes on. And everybody was like, oh, the accountant's just looking for more money and he's trying to pad his bills. There's no reason to do this. And I stood up for the taxpayer. She believed in me, and we did the form. Cost her a couple $100 to get it done, so it wasn't a lot of money. 2 years after her husband died, the city of Leavenworth decided they wanted that property, and they went back to the woman and gave her an offer of $8 million. and she was on her getting ready to move on to the next life at that point too, and her family was just so excited. They, were bowing to our office at that time because we were able to save them all that extra federal tax money they would have had to pay if they didn't.
That could have been potentially 40% tax.
Exactly.
Just a huge savings for the family. And you're saying it only costs a couple $100 to do this return?
Yes.
Oh, that is just priceless. I mean, really. So
all of our clients, if when one person dies and the other's out there, we always just file the form. It's just an easy way to protect the assets of the estate from the federal taxes. It's a simple no-brainer. Mom goes out and plays Powerball. She's going to save taxes if she wins that thing, later on when she dies. The family's going to be very happy about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's a cool deal. I mean, that is very wise. It's good planning. It's kind of the real beneficiaries of that are the children, right?
Exactly, and that's why we go to professionals, is not just because they can put the right numbers in the right box, or in Steve's case, check the right form and make sure it's done correctly, but looking at the bigger picture to make sure that the individual is protected and is getting the best representation possible.
Let's stay on taxes for a little bit. So have you had to do not just the returns when both spouses are gone or, a single person dies, but there's a big check to the IRS. You ever had to write one of those or tell clients, yes, you have to actually mail this?
Yeah, it's really hard because usually you're dealing with the family afterwards.
Right.
And we've got this big estate, and the deceased person's died, and now they're looking at this, and sometimes the estate's got cash, and even harder, sometimes it doesn't. And so, we have
the
to
IRS doesn't want to take an IOU, do they?
They do not. They want that money, and they want it, within 9 months of the time the person dies. So,
what are some of the checks that had to be written? Do you recall any of those?
Well, we had a $2.2 million check that had to be written to the IRS, and it was $700,000 had to be written to the state of Washington at the same time. So,
oh my gosh, over $2 million to the federal government 9 months from the date of death, and Washington took their share.
Yep,
$700,000. Yeah, I've had to counsel people on that and say, you really, really have to write that big check with all those zeros. And in most cases, with proper planning, those numbers could have been cut in half or even reduced or gone.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's where the good attorney like Steve comes in, because there's some things that could be set up along the way that just make that process so much less complicated and cheaper at the end of the day.
Yeah. So I think estate planning, legacy planning, and Northwest tax specialists are about tax efficiencies, about helping families and doing things right, doing things with the good advisors, making sure the whole plan fits. When you die, sometimes there's a big fat check, and most of that can be avoided. So, you should take advantage, and whether it's by calling up today at 1-800-955-8200 and asking us questions, or better yet, call during the week or send an email to radio@waltar.com. That's radio@waltar.com. And that way I can set you up to meet with Edward or someone from his team, or I can meet with you myself. Again, both of us give free initial consults. So if, Ben Franklin said nothing in life is certain but death and taxes, but Will Rogers said, hey, at least death doesn't get worse every time Congress meets. We can help with these things. But it's not only those that have millions of dollars. People pay taxes yearly. So what does a client look like for you?
So, well, one of the things I was thinking about while you were asking that question is, there might be a lot of people out there that are like, well, I don't have $5 million. I don't even have $2 million. I have a little, I have a house and I don't have much. I got a retirement plan and not much going on.
Right.
I'm reminded of a client that I had 25 years ago that we were their accounting firm, and she went out and she was getting ready to move on to the next life, whatever that looked like, and she wanted her affairs in order. So she went and saw this qualified attorney, and he set up an estate plan for her, put together the will, the power of attorneys, all the pieces she need. She even wrote out her little obituary and put the filing fee in cash behind it so the family didn't have to think of anything. And she put a big note on the front of her binder, please go see this attorney and see Edward Harris at my accounting office. They'll take care of everything. And it wasn't a very big estate, but when she passed on, the family was so thankful to both of us because they didn't have to do anything. They just, everything was already taken care of, and that just took all the relief so they could actually go through the mourning process and take care of everything. And those people are still clients of mine today. That's
that
the
is
amazing
great.
thing.
What we love to have is stories of good planning. But I often see it go the other way. In fact, one guy, I cornered him. Why won't you plan? He said, Steve, I think deep down, I just want it to be a miserable day on my loved ones when I die. I hope he was joking, but that's the mess that most people leave. We'll talk about how to do good planning after our break.
Do you need a will or trust, or no planning at all? You're listening to Legacy Planning with Steve Waltar. Join in the conversation at 800-955-8200. That's 800-955-8200. Legacy Planning. You're listening to Legacy Planning with Steve Waltar. Join in the conversation now at 800-955-8200. That's 800-955-8200.
We are back, and before the break we talked about, my gosh, isn't it nice when someone comes to you or I and they say, wow, this was such an easy process, and they say thank you to mom and dad for doing such a good job of planning that it was the least amount of hassle when someone dies. That's I consider that to be good stewardship. And then I said, sometimes have people do the opposite. Most people don't plan to fail; they fail to plan. And sometimes when money's involved, or the estates go weird or sideways, and I know every week in my practice, I get an email from Nigeria saying you are the lucky beneficiary of £100 million or something like that. So I thought maybe we should talk about the brain and fear and a little bit about scams. What do you know? And I'm here with Edward Harris, who runs Northwest Tax Specialists. He's an enrolled agent. He does accounting and all that sort of thing. What do you know about scams? What can you tell our listeners, Eddie?
So that's another interesting subject, because the IRS just 3 days ago, February 18th, released their newest report on it. And there's been an uptick of almost 400% of email scams that are going on out there. You get a little note that says you got a refund coming from the IRS that's unclaimed, and it's actually got the IRS logo on there, and it says Seattle, Washington on it. It's got the address of the federal building downtown.
So those are exactly the hooks. Free money, IRS. These are alerts. These are emotional things that pop up there, and your brain immediately wants to conclude things.
Exactly. So you click on the link, and all of a sudden they've got control of your computer. They're gathering your information, your bank accounts, and everything.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's worse than clicking on a picture and it takes you where you don't want to be. Now they have access to information on your computer.
Exactly. And you have to, this goes beyond the IRS, and I will take this opportunity just to warn everybody. I constantly get emails on a daily basis from my internet provider, from my bank, from all different things that say your account's been suspended, your credit's been cut off, and click on this link. And the moment we do that, it's not a good place. The even harder one, and we're getting calls, every single day from our clients out there, is there has been a plethora of calls going on, in telephone calls in the Seattle region. People getting called, they say they're from the IRS. They give you your badge number, and they say that you owe them some money for the last couple of years worth of taxes. Maybe not even that much, maybe a couple $1,000, and you need to pay them immediately, or they're going to file a lawsuit against you. They've got the cops on the way to arrest you, and they're badgering people and very hard line with them. I've had clients call me up crying on the phone saying that the cops are on their way out to arrest them because they owe a couple $1,000 in taxes, and they want to know what we did wrong on it. And I have to explain to them that this is a fraud. It's not true. The IRS doesn't arrest you for back taxes, and if they are going to, you've done something really bad, and it's not just because you failed to pay your taxes 2 years ago. So it's scary out there right now, and they're preying on a lot of elderly people and people that are afraid that something bad's going to happen to them, and so they call our office. We help them out. We've even reported into the Seattle Police Department about it and let them know about it. They don't take any action on it because most of the time these people are calling from out of the country, or they're calling from across the country, and so it becomes a national issue. And they don't have the resources to track all these people down.
Wow. I want to unpack that a little bit, because at home, my wife and I, we get calls from charities, oh, we want to thank you for our giving last year, and we probably didn't give to that charity. It's kind of annoying, but I've never gotten a call from someone. Have I? Maybe I have gotten that call saying that money is owed or something like that, but I tend to see through things fairly quickly. As an attorney, I'd start telling them I'm an attorney, and they hang up. But people are actually getting phone calls where someone is faking like they're an IRS agent, and they are getting that demanding with someone. Exactly.
And if you're listening to this radio station, you've got a good chance of maybe getting one of those calls here at some point in time, just because it's happening that frequently out there in the Seattle area right now.
So what should people do when they get a call like that?
really hang up and don't give them any information. And don't ever give anybody any pertinent information over the phone. Don't give Social Security numbers. Don't give addresses. Don't give anything, even if you think you know who you're talking to, because they should have that information if they're calling you.
That's good advice. And the one that I tend to see and hear more about is when someone calls and says, your grandson is in prison, he's over here, we need money, that sort of thing. It's preying on the elderly, it's preying on the grandparents or the parents and stuff like that. And those are scams as well.
Yeah, and the big thing about it is just don't give out the information, and having qualified people in your life too. You can always refer them on to your attorney or your tax accountant. I mean, we get lots of people. I just say, if they're that insistent, tell them that they need to call our offices, and we'll take care of them for you. And they never call because they know better.
Yeah. Okay, so to summarize, if you get a call from someone posing as an IRS agent, hang up. Just hang up. Tell them that you have your own accountant with Edward Harris at Northwest Tax Specialist. Tell them you have an attorney, Steve Waltar. Just hang up, because that's a scam. Don't give out any sort of information there. Save yourself some time. And you can either curse them or pray for them, but don't give them your credit card. Don't peel open your wallet on the phone to someone like that. Let's see. What else should we cover?
And I've got a great idea that I was just thinking about that kind of leads into this is, if you're an individual or you're a small business or you're dealing with the IRS or the state of Washington in any way, you should never, ever try to respond to one of their letters, notices, or audits that ever come up. I see, I had a client that just came into my office a couple weeks ago that is a small business, and they got an audit from the Department of Revenue, and they let their bookkeeper handle the audit for them, and now they owe hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes, and they're coming to our firm to try to straighten it out and figure out what they're going to do from here. It's always important if you're dealing with any agency out there to get a professional to handle it for you, that knows what these guys are looking for. Just because they come in and do an audit, they're not trying to teach you anything or make what's actually get from you what's owed. What they're trying to do is get as much from you as physically possible. So you need somebody that understands that and can represent you before in any level, the state or federal government. I just encourage you to go find a qualified professional, and you're not going to get that at a place like H&R Block or any of the other companies. You need a firm that's
you can't
able
go to
represent.
TurboTax to solve that problem.
No.
So if you get an actual notice from a state or the IRS, some agency, probably get a copy of that to you and then let you actually represent the client.
Exactly.
And that could save you. That could save the client. I think you were saying hundreds of. It depends on the claim, but that could be a huge tax savings, right?
Exactly. And so that's a part of what we also do too. Is we, any notices, anything that comes in from any agency, we write the letters and we take care of all of it for our clients. It's just part of our standard course of business, because any way you respond to this stuff could just open up additional layers of things that you have to take care of, and you start digging this hole that gets worse and worse.
Yeah, I sometimes say, what is the most expensive advice? And it's poor advice, right? Yep. So in the field of estate planning, people don't know if they need a will or a trust. People don't know if they need an immediate power of attorney or a springing power of attorney unless they're in the field of estate planning law. You don't know what you don't know, right? And taxes and money, this is emotional stuff, right? And then if someone gets a notice or a call and they react emotionally rather than seeing a professional like yourself, bad things tend to happen.
Well, yeah, and the IRS sent out a broadcast a while back, and they said that if the IRS sends out a bill they had a number like $1,147. If they send out a bill of less than that amount, 90% of the people just pay it immediately, regardless of whether it's owed or not, or true or actual. If they send out notices of less than a certain amount, people just are scared of the IRS, so they just pay it and move on. And that always gets me to wonder, what's really going on out there. So you need
that's like I think of policemen perhaps that want to certain areas are speeding zones. They need to fill a quota. They serve our country and society very well, but this sounds like the IRS has some marketing. So on that, you get a notice. Again, much better to get it to my office, and I'll forward it to Edward Harris at Northwest Tax Specialist. You get a notice like that, it's better to show it to some professional and then deal with it head on.
Exactly.
So at your firm, someone's not going to have to pay, $1,500 to resolve an $1,100 bill.
Exactly. And that's the whole part about it. And, that's the other part that makes enrolled agents so much better than any other, the professional in handling taxes, because we are America's tax experts, and we can take this information and decipher it and figure out where you're at. That's the strange part is we get people that will email me or call our office and say, I owe the IRS all this stuff and I'm getting this letter, and we always, my staff's first response is, send us the notice. Well, no, I'll read the notice. I say, send us the notice. We want to see what it says on it. And I've got notices where people have sent them to us telling us they owe all this money, and that's not what the notice says. In fact, one notice, they were getting a refund, and they just read it wrong. So
there are emotional blinders when it comes to monies and notice. So, yeah, that is great. So if you are wondering about your estate plan may not work, your tax planning may not work, you should give us a call at a law office, 425-455-6788. Or better yet, come out to one of our seminars and we'll help you with these things.
Legacy Planning. You're listening to Legacy Planning with Steve Waltar. Is there ever a good time to do estate planning? Ask your kids. They'll know that right now would be the perfect time. Call in for the right answers at 800-955-8200. That's 800-955-8200. Legacy Planning. This is Legacy Planning with Steve Waltar, committed to helping you with personalized and compassionate estate planning. The lines reopen for your call at 800-955-8200. That's 800-955-8200.
All right, we are back. We are back for our last segment, and a brave listener asked me during the break, Steve, what is a springing power of attorney? If you're out there driving now or you're having your third cup of coffee and you don't know what a springing power of attorney is, well, yeah, you can come to one of my seminars, come to my consults, and I will explain it. But let me just tell the listeners, a springing power of attorney is one that does not take effect the day it is signed. It springs into action kind of at the moment it's needed. Usually it takes one or two doctors to certify that you're unable to manage your affairs. So if you if you're single, I would say it often makes sense to have a springing power of attorney. You don't want anyone to start managing your money or, paying your checks and your bills and stuff like that until the moment in which you're unable. Now, you probably don't want to have a court process. If you don't have any power of attorney, then you have to do a guardianship, a living probate. What a pain. I was going to fill the rest of that, but I won't for the air. So it's, thousands of dollars to do that. So are there more than one kinds of powers of attorney? Absolutely. I mean, there's powers. We do powers of attorney for financial matters as well as powers for health. Now, healthcare matters, you have to give immediate power of attorney. It can't be a springing power. Think of the HIPAA rules. How can you give authorized consent the very moment you're unable to consent? You're incapacitated. It doesn't work. It blew up thousands of powers of attorney. So if you have not redone your powers of attorney since probably 2005, you should come in and check those things out. And if there's more than one kind of power of attorney, what about trusts? Is there more than one kind of trust? Absolutely. In fact, I would say trusts are an estate planner's golf clubs, different kinds for different purposes, right? So in that bag, just like there's, drivers for long shots and there's sand wedges and putters and all these different kinds of clubs in estate planning, it's been said, don't put your trust in money, put your money in trust. If you want a trust that is created after someone dies, that's a testamentary trust. If you want one that's created while you're alive, that's a living trust. Now, a living trust can be revocable or irrevocable. So there's all kinds of things, and that's kind of my wheelhouse. I don't make any recommendation till I sit down and I meet with an individual or a couple. And if there's a lot of things that can be done in estate planning, what about returns? We're here with Edward Harris today from Northwest Tax Specialist, and he's an enrolled agent and runs this accounting firm. And Edward, what kind of returns are there out there that people do that you do?
There's all kinds of...
Tell us about the voodoo that you do.
There's all kinds of different tax returns out there. There's corporations, there's partnerships. We've got all different types of entities that you can form. There's sole proprietorships. There's limited liability companies or LLCs or LLPs for limited liability professionals.
Let's go back to the LLC. That's a really popular one. I often do an LLC for clients. Yes, I do LLCs. I do incorporations. I create these business entities. But why do people do LLCs?
Most people do LLCs because they've heard about it somewhere and they think it's the hip, slicking thing to do. And it's not always perfect in every situation. The one thing that I always say about tax is, attorneys have a little bit different slang to it, but for us, the answer to any question is always yes, no, and maybe. Because yes, it is deductible under certain areas. No, it's not deductible in others, and we need a lot more information to figure out where it's going to be at, so that maybe comes in. And that happens for all things in tax. And so same with entities. What you're going to do really requires a professional to look at it and say, what kind of business is it going to be? Are you going to have partners? What are you looking for taxes? All of it. Are you planning on using this entity to pass something on to heirs? Because there's a whole list of things that we can do with those that work well in the estate planning tools that when you're talking to Steve's office. So,
before we talked about big checks to the IRS, you've had to help clients steady their hand, write a $2.2 million check to the IRS and over $700,000 to the state. I have done family limited liability companies with all the fancy tax language, and I have saved millions of taxes for families. And you can do that. They're more complicated documents and who's the manager, and you can allow for gifting. But it's also possible someone can do a very simple LLC to hold their rental property. Right?
Exactly, yep.
And you can advise people about how to be taxed as a partnership or as a corporation and do those sorts of things.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So legacy planning is not only me making sure that I listen to clients and I design a custom plan based on their needs, whether it's a living trust-based plan that avoids court or whether it's a will-based plan. I make sure there's powers of attorney, healthcare, all those things. But I want to not only do good documents, I want to introduce people to accountants that can help people with their taxes. That affects their daily living. And that sort of thing is covered at our upcoming seminars. And we'd love to have you come to one of our seminars on legacy estate planning. That's coming up the first week of March. Go to our website, waltar.com. That's www.waltar.com. So what we want to do is help you with these things, help you with your life. You don't know what kind of planning you need till you sit down with a planner. And so whether you're meeting with me or one of my partners in tax, accounting, and financial advising, we can help you with that. I have so many clients that they struggle. They're married, they want to provide for their spouse, but they also want to provide for their kids. That takes planning. That takes planning at the estate level. That takes planning at the income tax level. So that's the field we are in. We would love to help you with those sorts of things. You don't have to wait. Every week, give us a call at our firm, 425-455-6788. That's 425-455-6788.
You've been listening to Legacy Planning with local attorney Steve Waltar. If you have questions about what you heard on today's show or estate planning in general, be sure to call Steve's office in Bellevue to schedule your free no-obligation consultation. Call Steve at 425-455-6788. That's 425-455-6788. And remember, you can always listen to today's or previous programs by going to waltar.com. That's WALTAR.com. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and be sure to join us again next Saturday morning from 8 till 9, right here on 820 AM KGNW.